Welcome to tonight's Evening of Hope. We are finally back live and in person, and I think it really feels pretty great. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Peter Fishman. I'm president of Voices of Hope. Tonight's program is meant to inspire you in many ways. It's meant to inspire commitment to the Holocaust and genocide commemoration, and to inspire action for the future that is safe for everyone. Above all else, it's meant to inspire hope. We would like to thank the JCC for hosting us tonight in this wonderful theater. We would like to thank our Evening of Hope committee, which I was going to ask to stand up, but I'm not sure that anybody's going to be able to see them. But if the committee would please stand. Tonight would not happen without their involvement. I would like to thank our Executive Director, Kathy Fishman, and our Director of Programs and Development, Robin Landau, and our Interim Hero Center Director, Kimberly Bolero, for their incredible effort and dedication in making all that we do possible. We want to extend our gratitude to the Jewish Foundation of Greater Hartford, the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford, and the Jewish Community Foundation for their continued partnership and support. We have accomplished so much in this last year, but we have so much more to do to ensure that this history is not forgotten, and that we are creating more compassionate future for the next generations. We are so fortunate to have worked with so many survivors over the years, with their children and now with their grandchildren, as the legacy of their stories continue to be told. Eliane Sandler, our honoree, understands the importance of L'Dor V'Dor, from generation to generation. Eliane's mother, Gisela Adamski, of blessed memory, spoke at countless commemorations at schools and community events. I had the privilege and honor of hearing her speak over the years, and I learned very much from her. Eliane served on our board, and now her daughter, Cherie, is continuing in her footsteps as a board member and the chair of tonight's event. Thank you both for all you do for Voices of Hope and for our community. It's a pleasure to work with you, and I'm so glad that you are here and part of our Voices of Hope family. Now we have a special guest message for Eliane.
Hi, this is U.S. Senator Chris Murphy. Eliane, thank you for the just heroic work that you have done over the course of your life to support the work of telling the story of the Holocaust, to making sure that we live up to our obligation as policymakers, as citizens, to know it and to commit ourselves to policies that make sure that nothing like it ever happens again. Thanks for your work as a special education educator. I'm the son of a special education educator, and so I know how much that work has meant to the kids that you've served. My belief is that you're in a room surrounds you with people who are willing to pick up the work that you've done and make sure that it lasts for generations and generations. That's my commitment to you. We're so lucky to have had you be a leader in Connecticut when it comes to the work of remembering the Holocaust and committing ourselves to do something to make sure that it never, ever happens again.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. I will now hand the microphone over to Rachel Torres to present our L'Dor V'Dor recognition. Rachel is an educator at Newtown High School and has been involved in many of Voices of Hope's programs in the Hero Center's programming. Join me in welcoming Mrs. Torres.
Good evening. What an honor it is to present the L'Dor V'Dor recognition to Eliane Sandler. She may not recall, but I had the privilege of meeting Eliane back in 2018 when I attended a Holocaust educator training. She accompanied her beloved mother, Gisela Adamski, may her memory be a blessing, who was there to share her survivor testimony. I observed with such admiration how Eliane tended to her mother with gentleness and care. I have learned that Lador Vador is Hebrew for from generation to generation. It refers to the responsibility of passing on spiritual knowledge and cultural traditions to the next generation for the sustaining of the customs, heritage, and collective memory of the Jewish people. At our educator training, Gisela courageously shared with us about her family who perished in the Holocaust. She challenged us as teachers to be witnesses, to never forget, and her message of resilience was palpable. I was in awe of Gisela's strength. And yet, I was also deeply drawn to Eliane's spirit. You see, my own mother has had her share of trauma in her life, and I know the impact my mother's suffering has had on me. So I wondered, what sustained Eliane as she listened to her mother's testimony of unspeakable tragedy time and time again? What toll had it taken on Eliane as a daughter of a survivor? Had Eliane and Gisela shared a close or tenuous relationship, or both? I didn't know the answers to these questions, but soon thereafter I would gain some insight. A year later, I would meet this powerhouse of a mother-daughter duo for a second time. I took my students to the Museum of Jewish Civilization at the University of Hartford. There they interacted with Jewish artifacts and learned the stories of Holocaust survivors who rebuilt their lives in Connecticut. Then we watched the documentary, Gisela's Legacy, and I learned not only of Gisela's life, but listened to Eliane share her experience. My students were in shock when they realized that Gisela was in the audience. They asked her questions, hugged her, and even took selfies. Lador Vador was in action. After watching the documentary, once again I was struck by Eliane's unwavering support of and unconditional commitment to her mother. The following year, I had grandiose plans for Gisela to visit Newtown High School as our guest speaker when COVID-19 struck. What a whirlwind. After 3 months of teaching virtually, I felt that I was losing connection with my students. I was worried that I would not be able to teach about the Holocaust with the same integrity and fidelity that I had intended. I reached out to Kim Bolero at Voices of Hope and learned that Gisela would be willing to speak with my students via a Google Meet. I remember thinking, she uses the internet? Will she know how to do a virtual call? And then I realized if she could survive the Holocaust, she could do anything. So with Kim's help, we made history on June 2nd, 2020. A Google Meet with 92-year-old Gisela Adamski and 60 of my students took place. She answered all kinds of questions, ranging from how did the Holocaust affect your faith to what do you think about the Black Lives Matter movement and what happened to George Floyd? She responded with honesty, grace, and humor. I saw my students come alive that day via the computer screen. The connection from one generation to another generation had transpired. And who else was there on that day? Eliane, her daughters as well. They all witnessed their beloved mother and grandmother inspire students and a teacher about the importance of Holocaust education and listening to a survivor's testimony. That experience reminded all of us of the consequences of our choices and the responsibility we all have to stand up against bias, against the evils of racism and anti-Semitism. I know that on that day, my students learned how they can be forces for change despite their age, and that even in the midst of negative circumstances, they can resist injustice rise above, and make a change. Eliane Sandler, you embody all that L'Adore Vador represents. Thank you for your dedication to making connections across generations so that we all learn of the significance of the Jewish experience. It is my honor and privilege to present to you the L'Adore Vador recognition. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Eliane Sandler. I want to thank you all for your support of Voices of Hope and for coming together tonight. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person, but I'm in the midst of chemotherapy. I'm grateful to be honored here tonight and want to thank the Board of Voices and staff, and especially my two G friends who spazier and schlep with me. I feel I'm here tonight representing not only myself, but also my parents, Gisela Mariana Adamski, born Zaks, and Sevek Adamski, whose birth name was Schmerl. They were the sole survivors of their families. My mother from Opel, Germany, to Deopele, Poland, and survived Terezin, Auschwitz, Birkenau, Kurzbach, and the Death March. My father was sent to the Gulag and then returned to Poland as a tank lieutenant commander with the Polish army under Russian command. He never found out what had happened to his family, who were imprisoned in Warsaw, in the Warsaw Ghetto, and from there disappeared. Many of you knew my mother. Some of you brought her to your schools and heard her give testimony to your students. My mother dedicated the last decades of her life to telling her story, to giving life to her murdered loved ones and the world she grew up in. My father, like so many men of his generation, almost never told the story. I remember as a child in New York City getting on the subway to go to the earliest Holocaust commemorations. My parents would help survivors find their way to Madison Square Garden for the event, making sure the whole community could attend. My mother played a key role in the building of the American Gathering of Holocaust Survivors, the group from which major commemorations began. I'll never forget sitting in the rain with my mother, listening to Elie Wiesel and Bill Clinton speak in Washington, D.C. for the opening of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. I remember standing with my mother outside the UN protesting Holocaust denial. I have so many memories of traveling with her to share her story, of talking together to students about our history. Our parents passed their history down to us, one way or another, whether they wanted to or not, whether it meant their panic when we came home hours late from shopping, or the way every existing family member treasured me, the only child, like I was a jewel. My family's history was woven into my life. It's only recently that I've realized when someone asks me how I manage the recurrence of my cancer and going through chemo again, that I think of the more subtle lessons my mother taught me. It's not the same, of course, but hearing her stories of the Death March, she would tell me about just putting one foot in front of the other. She continued when it seemed impossible, because when she fell down, other women picked her up. And when you have support, continuing on is really the only choice. I suppose no matter what we face, that image of her marching on through the Polish woods, supported by strangers, comes to mind. You act on behalf of others and you just keep going. Perhaps that is how it works with memory too. The memory must keep going. The stories passed down, which is why Voices of Hope is so important. My mother would always close her testimony by reciting Pastor Niemöller's famous poem. And so I know the mandate isn't just about memory. It's about fighting off apathy, fighting off denial, and remembering that we must fight hatred wherever we find it. And like those women in the forest who picked my mother up, help whomever we can. Thank you again for your attendance here tonight and for supporting Voices of Hope. On behalf of my parents and the generations that would continue to tell the stories after me, in recognition of the work of the second generation, I thank you for this honor. Please enjoy your evening.
welcome. Perhaps we could start by giving Eliane a standing ovation and a wish of health for what she's going through, and a prayer for her good healing. So let's all give her a standing ovation and a thank you. My name is Alan Lazowski, and I'm honored to have been the founding chair of Voices of Hope, and this organization does amazing, amazing work, and it wouldn't be possible without the amazing leadership of Peter and everyone on the board, so let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you, Peter. And our amazing executive director and leader, Kathy Fishman. Where's Kathy? Thank you, Kathy, and Robin and Kim. You really are amazing. And I have to say that, I know my dad for years and years and years was trying to get genocide and Holocaust education mandated in the school systems throughout Connecticut. And he worked tirelessly for that. And because of some people that he knows and his amazing leadership and really Voices of Hope and many people in this room, it happened in the state of Connecticut. So I want to recognize my 92-year-old rabbi dad, and thank you. I also want to recognize somebody that's near and dear to everyone in our community and Voices of Hope for many, many, many years. In fact, she was part of our founding roundtable, and many of you know her and love her. She's retiring from the ADL. Marjorie Lipship Shapiro is here. And Marjorie, could we put the lights on so Marjorie can just wave for a second? Marjorie, where are you? Thank you, Margie. So our mission to promote a culture of courage to stand up against hate through Holocaust and genocide education and remembrance is so important now more than ever. When you think about what's happening in our world, the rise of anti-Semitism, the hate crimes that are happening, this organization is here and now, and what we do to help educate educators and teach children is vital in fighting against hate and building that hope for the future. And I'm just so thankful that tonight we have Eliane's daughter, Shiri, here with us, who in her own right is an amazing, amazing 3G, an amazing third generation of survivors. You have that in your heart, and you've dedicated your spirit and your life's work to helping raise money for genocide. And so we're so glad that you're in our community, Sherry, and we're so glad that you're here with us tonight. And I know you're going to inspire all of us to give a little tonight in your speech. So with that, I'd like to thank you, call you up, and thank you for chairing this amazing evening, and thank you for everything you do, and thank you for making us all proud as children of survivors. Thank you. And we do have a little gift for you.
Oh, I'm so touched. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. These are beautiful. Thank you. I'll bring them to my mom. First of all, as Alan said, I'm Shiri Sandler. I'm one of Eliane Sandler's daughters. One of my sisters, Jessie, is here with us tonight, and a lot of our family, to celebrate this recognition on my mother's behalf. I know she wishes she could be here herself. And I think she wants me to tell you that had she been, she would have been even funnier in person than she was in her speech. I'm here tonight to do two things. And the first is, as a chair of this event and a board member of Voices of Hope, I want to speak just briefly to why Voices and the work it does matters so much. Rachel, I can't see you over the flowers. There you are. I want to thank you for your words tonight. We saw our grandmother speak so many times to so many schools, and sometimes I was lucky enough to be up on stage with her, listening to her tell her story, feeling her passion in those moments. And Rachel's class was the last class she ever spoke to. My grandmother died almost 2 years ago, and we all, those of us who are second and third generation, come to a moment where the stories become ours, right? Our responsibility, in some ways our burden, but in many ways just part of who we are. And knowing that my grandmother and my mother had that impact on Rachel that day and on her students means an enormous amount to me personally, but also to me as a 3G, knowing the impact survivors can have. And that's why the work of Voices of Hope matters so much to me, because all of us will come to a point when the stories are just ours, but we're not going to be alone in that, because Voices is here with us in this community to make sure there is a way to ensure these stories are told and that these stories are remembered, and children will always learn about the Holocaust. So as Alan promised, I'm going to ask you guys to give a little tonight. My mother would want me to, and also it's my job. So there are two ways. In your programs, you have this Give for Good yellow folder, and in a minute, there you go, we have a text to give up on the screen. But I want to tell you something before you even begin. We have 180 people here with us tonight, and you have raised over $117,000 for the work of Voices of Hope. Yes, I agree. This is an incredibly meaningful amount of money. You can see here how far small amounts of money go with this organization, what any amount can do for the work they do here in Connecticut. And we have a goal tonight. We want to raise another $10,000 here tonight. And I think we can do it. We have a match this evening. An anonymous donor is going to match up to $10,000, which could bring our total to almost $140,000 tonight. And now, in case you didn't notice, I am the thing that stands between you and the play and you and dessert. Yes. So I encourage you, take out your yellow forms. Can I ask for the house lights up a little bit? Take out your yellow forms. Take out your cell phones. If you need to, get on the JCC Wi-Fi, and you can text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 860-362-2646. You can also fill out this form. Can I ask a couple of our volunteers to make themselves known? Volunteers are waving their hands. I'm going to volunteer my little sister and my stepbrother Michael as well, and they will come around and pick up your forms after you fill them out. All looking at each other like, who's going to do this first? I think my stepdad Larry is going to do this first. Larry, you're going to do it first. Yep, raise your hand with your yellow form. Perfect. Larry's going first. Now it's not so scary for the rest of us. A gift of $118 tonight allows Holocaust education materials for one classroom. You can sponsor an entire class of kids in their Holocaust learning with just $118. For $250, you can create a Holocaust library for one classroom. You can give an entire classroom one book. I will tell you, I was talking with some other, yes, we have a giver back there in the audience, a volunteer is picking it up. Thank you, I can't see who you are, but I am grateful. I was talking with some friends the other day about how there is another one, the books we remember reading first as kids in school. We all remembered Number the Stars. Imagine with $250, you can have that impact on one whole classroom of kids. We have two gifts given over here. $1,700, thank you. And that is matched, right? So that is, I'm doing the math, $3,400 right there. We're going to keep going. And during the dessert reception after the show tonight, we're going to see how much we were able to raise. So you will get, at the same time, cookies and the feeling of making Holocaust education possible for kids around Connecticut. And I promise, you have never gotten those two things together at the same time before. We have another donor there with a yellow form. Thank you. $1,400. This is remarkable. Thank you. Do we have some, I see some forms being filled out in the back. We have another form picked up back there. And I want to tell you about my favorite on the list here. Is $1,000 provides scholarship opportunities for teachers and students to $1,000? Nope. $500, double to make $1,000. These scholarship opportunities allow teachers and students from this area to travel to what we call authentic sites, to see the camps, to go to Poland and Germany and touch this history, which is an incredible opportunity for educators, an experience that students will never forget. I see more forms being given in the back. Thank you. We need a form picked up here. Jessie, my sister's going to pick it up from our stepdad. It's all a family business. Talk about Lador Vador. There's a great question. So there is no cell service. Can we do it after the play? We can. These numbers will stay live, and we will make sure they are shared with you. You can also join the JCC Wi-Fi on your phone and give that way. But we will take donations all night. I see more donations coming in up here. Several more $100. This is incredible. Thank you. I see more being passed forward this way. All right, I am going to make one more pitch, and then I'm going to introduce the play. I want to thank you all for your generosity tonight. If you've still got that form in hand, wave your hand. Someone will come get it from you. We've got a couple more, a third of the way back here, one along the aisle over here. Lisa, up ahead as well. Lisa, three forward. I'm a little bit blind. Thank you. Wave your hand, raise a hand, gesture wildly. Maybe I'll see you. I don't blame you, Peter. It really is quite bright. Thank you all. This means really an enormous amount. Voices is an incredibly small organization, and they do so much with so little. Throughout the pandemic, they have reached students. I want to read this to you actually exactly. They have reached students in 37 states and 11 countries. Their reach is beyond what we can imagine with the dollars we give them. And so you have just enabled a year of impact with your generosity here tonight and your generosity coming into this room. Thank you again for your generosity this evening, for being here to support Voices, for honoring my mother, and in doing so, honoring my grandmother's memory as well. I want to thank you again.